Yes. Okay, great. Let's get started then. We'll call to order this meeting of the Workforce Housing Committee for April 21st, 2025. Daphne, do you want to just quickly do the roll?
Sure. Bruce,
Here?
Nugent,
Here.
Hickle, Wolf,
Here.
Famularo,
Here.
Larson.
She's
Oh,
here.
yeah. You see her
Here,
waving.
sorry.
Yeah. Roden.
Here.
And then Alder Haniro is present. Adams and Huang are absent and excused.
Okay. All right, great. Okay, first item is the minutes of our March 13th, 2025 joint meeting with CDA. Does anyone have any corrections to the minutes or comments? Okay, I don't have any corrections, but Daphne, I did note that we still need to get an answer from the city attorney regarding the Urban Consortium Cooperation Agreement and whether changing our CDA in the future to be an actual housing authority would have any impact on that. So can you note that as an action item?
Yeah, I'll message him again. He's probably just swamped with everything else we have going on. So
Okay,
yeah,
if you
I'll
got,
message him.
if you copy me on that, then I can
Sure.
ping him as well. Okay,
Okay.
all right. So with no corrections, the minutes of the joint meeting with CDA on March 13th, 2025 are accepted as drafted. All right, we'll move on to our next agenda item, which is the discussion of affordable housing action plans subcommittees, including setting dates for May meeting kickoff and determining meeting format. And I guess I'll kick off the discussion by noting, in case you hadn't heard yet, Council did approve Resolution 2025-12, taking the making the decision to we're going to close our TID next year. We'll take a one-year extension, and the funding from that final year of tax increment, which now is estimated at between 10 and $11 million, we'll be able to use at least up to 75% of that for affordable housing. And as members of this committee have thought, maybe more than just 75% of that. So that was really good news. That happened last week. And the CDA, Daphne, did CDA meet last week?
Yes, I believe it was last week or yeah, last week that they met. And they didn't really talk about dates yet because they wanted to wait until workforce housing members were added to the subcommittee. But these were the members that they had put onto the subcommittees. And so
Okay.
that's basically all they discussed.
Okay, good. All right. So CDA, since they met before we did, they were able to talk about who on their um, group wanted to participate in either of our two subcommittees. You'll recall last time we had talked about as many as 4 subcommittees, and then we decided to bundle strategy and finance together, and education. And when Daphne and Abby and I met to go over this plan, this timeline, and the possibility of subcommittees, and some of what we had taken down as notes from our joint meeting, we decided maybe education and outreach instead of partners as a separate group. It seemed more like the education function could be both educating prospective home buyers and renters in Middleton, as well as businesses and nonprofits, and also residents. So the education and outreach subcommittee will be the second one. And then we penciled in the names that we had jotted down at our last meeting. The alders aren't on here. I would like to be added to the workforce housing contingent on the strategy and finance one. I don't know where Alder Katie Nelson or Alder Randall Crow, who's the new CDA, he's taking John Schaefer's place on CDA. I don't know if both of them want to participate, and if so, which subcommittee they'd like to be on. But what I would like to find out now from the members is if you see your name listed on one of these two subcommittees and you're still interested, then great. If you have had something come up and you won't be able to do it, please let us know tonight. And if your name isn't on there, and John, I know you said you would be interested in either one. If that's still the case, please let us know tonight which one you would prefer to be on. And Daphne, you'll make a note to put me on strategy and finance, correct?
Mhm.
And just to sum up what these two will be doing, this is what I wrote up to John and Sam, since they couldn't attend our last meeting. The Strategy and Finance Subcommittee will develop an approach for investing in buying, building, refurbishing, and/or financing, along with specific recommendations for what these components will involve. The subcommittee will also identify funding sources that can supplement our TID funding, because we'll benefit from having more funding than what TID can provide. And then education and outreach will develop a communications plan and public information materials to inform Middleton residents, businesses, and elected officials about our housing needs. They'll also work to recruit Middleton area businesses and developers to partner with us on building support for more housing. And then, of course, we do need to eventually, for the actual Affordable Housing Action Plan, there should be the education component to help residents learn how to buy a home here, or just learn about their rights as renters. So that is the plan we have right now, to have these two committees, and you can see what's showing on the top of the page is just a very basic calendar. We already got the resolution passed, so that's done. And then we thought in May, the earlier the better, we'd organize these subcommittees and hold our first meetings, spend the summer researching, and start writing in August and September. And in October, it would be great to have a preliminary draft of our Affordable Housing Action Plan ready for review. Then we can refine it in November. The idea is to have this January presentation to council at a committee of the whole meeting, where the council can spend more time discussing an item like this versus at a council meeting where we're trying to get through the agenda as quickly as possible. So to prepare for that January committee of the whole meeting, we'd do that at our workforce housing December meeting. Refine the plan in February and go out for public input, and then take it to the council, and I hope meet with the same outcome that we got last week, taking something to council. So that is the plan, and I'd welcome reactions from the members, thoughts, things we should work in. We'll start with Randy, and then we'll go to Alan.
Do we have enough time built in the schedule for public input and, revisions if necessary? That's my only question.
That's a good question. Usually the committee of the whole meeting is at the end of the month. So the end of January. That would give us really February and March to do public outreach. Daphne, refresh my memory. What did you and Abby and I talk about for the public outreach? I think we decided, if I remember correctly, we decided not to do a survey. There are a lot of, the
Yeah.
city does a lot of surveys. And I think our thought was to do a couple of public meetings, one in person, one on Zoom. If we had to have more than one of each, that's fine. But I like mixing it up a little bit to give people options of in person, on Zoom, during the day, weekend, in the evening, just because people have so many different schedules.
Yeah, I think we had discussed definitely doing like an in-person meeting, nothing like a survey or anything like that. And it could probably be similar to how we did it for like our zoning ordinance, where we had 4 or 5
Yeah.
dates, and so people knew of all the dates ahead of time and, could work it around their schedules if they were really interested in doing, in providing input. And yeah, at least one of them could be, online virtually.
Does that answer your question and address your concern, Randy? Do you have a suggestion for how much?
No, I'm just unclear as to what that's going to entail, really. How much input do we get and how much revisions do we need to make?
Mhm.
I actually don't think we're going to get a lot of input, but I want to make sure that we have the ability to listen to people and incorporate their thoughts.
Yep, that's an excellent point. And, council does need to pass the resolution closing the TID on April 7th, but they don't need to approve the action plan. I mean, I'd like to have the two of them go together, but it's only the closure of the TID that has to be done by a certain date. So if we need a little more time to incorporate comments or get public or even council feedback, we can do that. I want to go to Alan first because he did have his hand raised, and then we'll go to you, Ben.
Mine was about the size of the subcommittees and if they were small enough so that we didn't have to do the extra overhead of the agendas and minutes and all that jazz. But if they are, then I think that is fine, and we maybe just do a little crash course on how to do it right.
They if we had just two members of CDA, we'd already be triggering notice requirements. And it's just cleaner to do the notice for both of these committees in the same way.
Okay.
So, and Daphne and Abby have said they will staff the two, which I totally appreciate, and hope to make a minimal staffing effort for them. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, it's Daphne, you're the one who posts the meetings, correct? For this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, we'll have to take like notes and minutes, but yeah, like posting the meetings is pretty easy, as long as we have everything that we're going to talk about in an agenda, and especially since the subcommittees aren't going to be making any, motions or actions, it's just going to be discussion. So that makes it a lot easier too.
Yeah.
And for the minutes and notes, Abby, would it work if we still like record the meeting? And I noticed you were starting to use some meeting note takers for some of the stuff. Do you have to attend if we still do the recording or have a designated meeting taker?
Oh, Daphne, that's a good question. Because I know Plan Commission sometimes has is it Otter AI does note
Yeah,
taking kind of
I
on.
think our IT department has kept us from using Otter AI just because of like the data management side of it. But I mean, we do record all the meetings and we can set it up so that the Zoom like automatically transcribes everything for us anyway. So yeah, I don't know if I actually have to be present if we have, the transcription of the meeting afterwards. I'll have to ask Abby and our city attorney about that.
Okay, good point. Was that it, Alan, or do you have more?
For and maybe it was it's a response to Randy, so I can wait till Ben's question's over, or I can ask
Why
it
don't you
now.
go ahead as long as you've got the.
Sure. I was thinking, I don't know if this is the thing we can do, but Randy, I would love to just post up on the green like all summer and talk about this stuff to people. So like if that's maybe a non-traditional way of doing it, uh, you know, I'll sit there with my sign and ask me about workforce housing, ask me about the CDA. Because it's the CDA that organizes most of that stuff on the green anyway,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, and I'm
Well,
already like a voluntary fixture at most of those events. So like, give me a t-shirt. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And we just hired on a new placemaking planner, and he's the one kind of organizing all the events, and he's going to be at all of the events as well. So we could easily, make, something for him to have a little table with, all the information that we've been going over as well. So yeah, that's a
Yeah,
great
yeah.
idea.
And we can do with like the trivia guy can be like, and go ask the old looking guy and Randy about this thing that they're working on.
Well, and that approach, didn't the planning staff do that for the University Avenue corridor plan? I thought there was like on the street canvassing of people.
Yeah, we did it during like the Good Neighbor Fest parade. We had like QR codes on, signage, and people were, while they were waiting for the parade to pass, they could, do a survey that way.
Mhm.
Yeah, and we did like a walking tour of all that. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Alan. Ben?
So Lisa, thanks for clarifying about that. Obviously, our goal is to have the action plan approved that same meeting. They passed a resolution, but that's not it's not mandatory. There's no deadline there. Is there any other deadlines, like once we get in the execution phase, in terms of when the funds have to be used or anything like that, or anything that
No,
we should?
it's
No.
open-ended.
Okay. Okay. All right. So we just want to go on as fast as possible, but no real mandates, right? So okay. Thanks.
Alan?
This is maybe new business, but I wanted to ask about the Forest Harbor apartments. It seems like that would be a gem of an opportunity for this kind of work, just a year too early,
Mm-hmm.
before we're ready. And maybe since it's a little early for us to act on something like that, we could use it instead as a case study to maybe make the planning of what we might do a little bit more concrete as far as like, okay, this is an opportunity. How do we think we would do this best? How would we work this thing up?
I like that idea, and you're right, because it's not on the agenda, we can't really discuss it, but let's put that on our next meeting agenda or the first meeting for the subcommittees to use this, frame it as an example. Any other questions, comments, reactions? I will tell you, we talked about, Abby and Daphne and I talked about leadership for these two subcommittees. We thought it would be good to have one member lead, like a Workforce Housing Committee member lead one and a CDA member lead the other. And I was leaning towards asking Alan if you would be willing to lead the education and outreach one. It's something that would be elected by the members, but I would encourage you to get elected. We'll, Amy you can count on Amy's vote. Abby will
Yeah,
grease the
I'd love to.
wheels. Okay, all right. And then I don't know if Jen Cole, former alder, who's on CDA, I don't know if she'll accept it, but she would be I'd lobby hard to get her to lead the strategy and finance. We'll see how that goes. I don't really know the other two CDA members, so it's kind of not fair because I can't compare them, but I did work with Jen Cole when she was an alder, and she's really, really sharp. Okay. How do we want to identify dates? Everybody are you all comfortable with doodle polls and stuff like that?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, then I
And
think,
for like the subcommittee meeting times.
yeah, the first one I think is important to schedule in early May, like the first half of May. So if Daphne and Abby coordinate on doodle polls to go out to the members, we can get that one meeting on the calendar, and at that meeting, people can decide, do we want to meet at this time, every month, or like, how do we want to schedule these? And whether they're going to be in person, hybrid, or all Zoom. So those will be options as well. Let's see, we went through the timeline. Oh, I had a question about the May 30th event. Daphne, can you scroll up a little bit? And I think everybody got a message from Abby about the Smart Growth Madison event. It's at the bottom of the calendar. Yeah. Nope. You had it.
Oh,
There it is.
Oh,
North
here.
Madison
Yeah.
workshop on May 30th. It's a $60 registration fee for I think it's 9 to 3 or 9:30 to 3:30 workshop, walking through just everything about, financing housing and constructing housing. It could be, I'm going to be there. It could be a really good opportunity. I recognize it's during the day and folks have jobs, so no pressure on anyone to attend. But if you do want to attend, the city is paying for registration. And we'll probably have a carpool or two to get to this event. I think it's in Sun Prairie. So please let Daphne know if you would like to take advantage of this opportunity. And again, if you can't, some of us will be there and we'll report back and gather information to share. And that's all I had for the first agenda item. So I guess unless there are more questions, we'll move on to Daphne.
Oh,
Oh,
I don't know if we have to make a motion to add
oh,
these.
that's right.
people.
You're right.
Okay, yeah.
You're
Just-
right. Okay.
Yeah.
So I need a motion. Thank you. I did not have that in my notes. We need a motion to appoint Ben and Jeremy and Randy and me to the Strategy and Finance Subcommittee, and Alan and Amy to the Education and Outreach one. Who would like to make that motion?
So moved.
Great. And do we have a second?
Seconded.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Oh, wait, John. John Nugent, which
Yeah, can I
Well-
go on the education and outreach?
you can. All right.
Thank you.
We don't do friendly amendments, but without objection, I will amend the motion to add John to the Education and Outreach Subcommittee. All right. So any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the ayes have it. Thank you for that, Daphne.
Mhm.
All right, let's move on to Daphne's staff update, please.
Okay. Yeah, so staff update, I've already sent you guys via email, but we have our housing website up and running. I've put just, basically all the things I've been sending you guys via email, all the links and all of that onto this website. So you can go to cityofmiddleton.us/housing. And all of this information is here. Alder Haniro did send me the link to More Housing Wisconsin. They have I think it's monthly webinar kind of things talking about housing all across the state and what other communities are doing. And so that's also a great resource that I've added onto the website. So if you guys, are, encountering anything that you think is interesting or, should be shared with other members of both workforce housing and CDA, feel free to send it to me and I can add it to the website. And I'll try to make it as, user-friendly as possible. So, hopefully as we add more resources, it's not just, a long block of text that you guys are looking at. So yeah, it's still, we're still revising and editing a lot of it. So feel free to send me anything that you might find.
Thanks, Daphne. Yeah, it's a work in progress, a living
Mhm.
document. And the League of Wisconsin Municipalities, More Housing Wisconsin page, they do have webinars, but they did 12 papers. The last one came out in February, and they have 12 papers. And with each paper, they have an interview of somebody, who's connected in some way to that topic. So I went to they had an event the league did in Whitewater, and I went there, and it was really helpful to hear them talk about maybe what their next steps might be for this series of papers. It's just been members might recall that Daphne presented to us the first paper, which was a housing checklist. In fact, Daphne, that's probably a piece of information to add to this website is
Okay.
the version of their first paper, the league's first paper was a housing ready checklist. And I had passed that on when I saw it,
Mhm.
and Daphne and Abby filled it out. And we're doing a lot of stuff, but it really helps to see what we aren't doing, so that we can zero in on those things, and possibly update it in the future. So I encourage everyone to check out, in particular, this page with the 12 papers and the 12 videos that they have. Yeah, it's a really, I was particularly excited to see their paper on neutralizing NIMBYism, because that's been a frequently encountered problem. All right. And do send Daphne any suggestions you have for adding to that page, and I will publicize it in my newsletter, and perhaps we can get the city's communications manager to do the same. All right, that is all that we had for staff updates. Yes, Daphne?
Yep.
Okay. Moving on to future agenda items. We have Alan's suggestion.
Mhm.
Any other things folks want to talk about? I know we still have on our work plan the idea of city ordinances on rent retaliation. I think those need to wait until the dust starts to settle around our major task. So I'm thinking our future agenda item, standing agenda item, will be to update, provide updates from the subcommittees and maybe
Mhm.
share things. Oh, and that reminds me, once the subcommittees are organized, the same rule that applies to not replying to all on messages, that will apply to the subcommittees as well. All right. Any further questions or comments? All right, hearing none, we are adjourned. Thank you all. Have a
Thank
good rest
you.
of your evening.
Thanks, everyone.
You too.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.